Hey, everybody, welcome to the show. Look, the Rainmaker podcast comes to you every Thursday, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, bringing you some heavy hitters in the industry. And today, we've got another one. Pete Fournier is with us. Let's get into it. Pete, what's going on, my man? How you doing?
What is up? We're all good. How about you?
Man, I'm doing great, man. So glad to have you here on the show. I've been excited about this since we booked the show. So just really looking forward to get into it. Just wanted to know, how's that Jameson Orange going out there for you?
I tell you, that's dangerous for me. It's pretty delicious. I think they should sponsor me for that video, but my wife still can't do brown stuff.
She's not doing the brown stuff. Yeah, I caught that little video on your Facebook page. It had me cracking up. I watched it a couple times. The expression on her face was priceless. With that. But man, Pete, you've got a lot of titles and a lot of responsibilities that you have. Kind of bring us up to speed. Like, what are those things that you're actually doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm president of sales of Innovative Financial Group. They're a nationwide IMO. I have my own brokerage called All Things Insurance Group. So I got about 130 or so agents across the country involved in that. I'm still personally producing, which is pretty fun, especially when you don't have to. And then I have Fournier Enterprises, which is an insurance agent consulting firm, essentially. So agents and agencies across the country either hire me to mentor and train their agents, or they just buy products from PeteFournier.com. So a lot of different avenues I'm running down on a daily basis.
Yeah, you're a busy guy. You got a lot going on. Well, you're young enough to do it. So with all of that, well, Pete, kind of give us a little of the backstory here. Like, what were you doing before insurance, and how did you kind of decide to make that transition? Because nobody goes to high school and says, I want to be a life insurance agent, you know?
Yeah. I actually was in college before I started. I got licensed my senior year of college. My roommate at the time was doing it, as well as a fraternity brother that was a little bit older than me. He came back to campus like after 2 years driving a pretty sweet vehicle. And I was like, dude, what are you doing? He was like, selling life insurance. I was like, sign me up. So that was it. So I was selling at a captive in college, sold at another captive soon after college, and then started my own agency in 2012. Hired some bad apples, got in a bunch of debt, took on a W-2 job, was flipping Pokemon cards and shoes and all kinds of nonsense
Wow.
to get that roll up, and made it out. Took me 18 months, but made it out, and the rest is kind of history.
Wow, that is an amazing story. It always it does interest me when people are telling their backstories and their transition into these types of things. I mean, over at PeteFournier.com, you know, the tagline you have there is the best place on the web for life insurance training, which I absolutely love. That tagline that you got there. What would you say your superpower is when it comes to, you know, PJF?
Yeah, making everything really simplistic for the agent. So my presentation that I teach on is 12 minutes. The needs analysis is like 4 or 5 minutes. The questions that I'm asking the client are a couple minutes. I could be in and out of a house or over the phone doing an app in 45 minutes. I think a lot of agents tend to overcomplicate or even talk their way out of a sale 9 times out of 10, instead of just making it very concise for the client to make a decision. So being able to break that down and eliminating the 3 or 4 hour presentation or the 17 sits to get a $50 a month app is really what I'm good at.
Wow. Well, that's amazing. I mean, what do you, you mentioned the in-home and you mentioned the like the telesales. Do you lean more towards one than the other, or how are you feeling about the latest trends to kind of go more virtual?
Yeah, I'm more of a belly to belly guy.
Okay.
I have a lot more control in person. I build a lot better rapport in person. I'm just more comfortable in person. And me being, from New Jersey originally, I'm a little more forceful in person.
Ah.
over the phone is still good, and I got to do it so I can replicate it and teach agents how to do it. The one thing I will share with the audience for over the phone though is you got to make them write stuff down. A
Mm,
lot of agents from a telesales perspective will throw out numbers and quotes and products and everything, and
yeah.
9 times out of 10 they get I want to think about it, and that's it, because you confuse the crap
Mm.
out of them. If you get them to write down your 3 option close or whatever you're doing and get a bunch of tie downs, it'll make your closing ratio a lot better over the phone. But I still do like face to face better.
Awesome. I mean, when it comes down to scripting and things of that nature, and I know like most of us teach like, okay, here's a script that you use or whatever, but scripts seem to come a dime a dozen, right?
Mhm.
So like, what's your philosophy behind scripts and relying on a script to do what it is that you need to do?
Yeah, so from a phoning perspective or for setting up your appointments, to this day, I've been using the same phone script since like 2013.
Hmm.
Now it's my words. So when I'm training an agent and I'm making a little joke or something in my phone script or whatever, that may not be their cup of tea or based on their personality. So we negate that, right? You got to make it, let me put it this way, the script is the outline, right? You don't have to say every word verbatim, whether you're setting the appointment or doing my presentation in the house. It's the rough outline to get you where you need to go. So if you need to change a sentence or an inflection, or that joke is too, out of your comfort zone,
Yeah.
don't make it. It's okay. But do about 80% of it, right? As long as it's working.
Yeah. I noticed you got the Slinget t-shirt on, registered trademark, by the way. Um, tell us how the Sling It roadmap came about. I was looking on your site and I saw that. So how did that come about, and what does it really teach the agents out there?
Yeah, so backstory on Sling It is I used to tell my agents all the time, just go out there and sling it, because a lot of agents will overcomplicate their products. They need to know everything about underwriting. They need to know the crediting of the composition of this IUL and all.
Mm,
You're just going to confuse the client. Know enough to be dangerous and go out there and do activity. Just sling it, right? So the roadmap came about from last June of 2021. I told a bunch of people, well, I actually surveyed an audience on social media asking what a crazy amount of life insurance would be to be sold on a monthly basis. People were saying 60, 70, 80. I got a couple six figures. So I set the bar at 150,000. I was going to buy leads, get referrals, and write 150,000. Now, mind you, I'm not writing like Brian Askin size IULs
okay.
for 50,000 a month, right? My average deal size is about 262. Still good, but they're not monsters. So I spent about 6,800 bucks on leads, which is a little high, but not for the return that I wanted to get.
Hmm.
Got a bunch of referrals and closed out the month at around 117,
Wow.
and then after some fall off, net 115. So I developed a roadmap for agents that want to replicate that process. So it's 4 weeks of prep leading up to your crazy month,
Okay.
and then 4 weeks of activity tracking. So what metrics you should be hitting on a weekly basis, even a
Mm.
daily basis, in terms of how many calls you should be making, how many leads you should have on hand, how many referrals you should be updating. That way, it's almost a barometer for those agents to track where they are running alongside of me, right? And
Hmm.
if you're doing the outline to a T, you should hit the same metrics, even if you're terrible, because I base it on basically below average statistics.
Wow. Well, we all know, I mean, what you're not measuring doesn't grow, and a lot of
Correct.
times I think that's something that, especially brand new agents, maybe even some veteran agents don't really do well, is to track that result that you're having and that you're getting, so that, okay, if I bought this many leads, I made this many calls, I did this many sets, I did this many sits, made this many sales. Okay, now you can start predicting some things that could be happening. So that's awesome. What do you think one of the key things, one of the key mistakes that, maybe someone, they just got licensed yesterday and they're about to dive into this thing, next week. What are some of the key things that you would tell them to look out for or to do?
Yeah. So the one thing is, social media has been awesome, and this collaboration of bringing people together at conferences and masterminds has been awesome. The only detriment that I see to like Facebook and Instagram and the conferences is every new agent has new shiny toy syndrome, and they got 48 paths laid out in front of them because I'm killing it over here and Earl's killing it over here and somebody else is killing it over here, and they don't have a direction to run in. So they wind up running around in circles and not making any money. So the first thing I would tell you is find a mentor that jives well with you, that's doing it themselves. They
Hmm.
have a proven track record. They can train you and run down that path of that mentor just blindly. Be like, listen, I'm going to go after it for 6 to 9 months. And along the way, I'm going to tweak stuff, my phone script, my presentation, right? All
Hmm.
that stuff to increase my closing ratio. But pick a path and run down it. You can learn how to cross sell 18 months, 24 months in. But if you want to pick Medicare, go down that path. If you want to pick life insurance, go down that path. Don't get that new shiny toy syndrome. And to your point, Earl, track your return on investment. Don't let it be money in, money out
Yeah.
constantly, right? I spent 20 grand and I made 22. Well, your net was 2 and you're on
Yeah.
the poverty line, right, for the month.
Exactly.
So track your stuff.
Is there a preference that you have or that you would even suggest for brand new agents to go captive or independent? What are your thoughts
Yeah.
about that? Because those are always conversations that are coming up.
Yeah, I did not mind my captive experience. I mean, looking
Hmm.
back, hindsight's 2020, and you're like, wow, my comp was lower, or that I only had one product, or whatever.
Hmm.
I would argue that you can make hundreds of thousands of dollars in any situation. That's why these captives have been
Yeah.
around for 200 years.
Yeah.
The only drawback to going independent, once again, could be that mentor. When a brand new licensed agent comes to me, it could be a buddy of mine or a recruit off a social or whatever.
Hmm.
They get 3 or 4 carriers. That's it. That's all you're allowed to sell. And
Wow.
if they don't qualify, you leave the house and you figure it out later, right? Which was probably the best thing that I did transitioning from a captive to independent. When I first started writing for the first 6 months, I only had 2 carriers. And if they
Wow.
didn't qualify for those products, I had to leave. But it taught me to be really focused on those 2 carriers. I knew the
Yeah.
underwriting, I knew what they qualified for, I knew the pricing and everything like that. And then you can slowly expand. But don't
Yeah.
get like 15 carriers off the bat. And again, new shiny toy syndrome. Oh my God, he's selling this. Let's get that carrier and write it once and have a chargeback, and then I won't write it ever again. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. And having to learn all those different policies that go along with that and the qualifications and the da 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 that goes along with all of that. I, I mean, Pete, we met at Road to 8% Nation in Charlotte. I didn't know both of us lived in North Carolina until like now,
Yeah.
but it's kind of crazy with that. How did that come about for you? And I know you're going to be speaking at the next one coming up. I believe it's February 11th in Philadelphia,
Hmm.
Pennsylvania. How did that, all come about where you started becoming a speaker and then now you're a speaker at Road to 8%?
Yeah. So right prior to the first 8%, the big conference, right, at Nissan Stadium, I guess that was 2018. For about a year, I was doing trainings for agencies across the country. So I was doing little speaking engagements, teams of 5, 10, 15, 20. And Cody actually invited me to be on one of his podcasts, then invited me to be on a panel at Nissan Stadium. And between the training programs, the PeteFournier.com, and the 8% kind of kickoff, it started becoming a trend. So I was at every 8%. I speak at a conference called SWAT every single year. I still do some agency trainings. Um, and the road to 8% came about, I guess, a year ago. Me, Cody, and Roger were talking. It was actually Roger Short's idea from Life Insurance Academy podcast, to kind of go on the road and introduce the 8%, mantra and
Mm-hmm.
mastermind to states that we've never been to before, which is kind of cool. Like going back to Philly, it's kind of like my home,
Okay.
but we've never spoken California or Denver, or
Mm-hmm.
I've never spoken Kansas City, which is kind of cool. So it's getting new agents kind of in the room, which again wasn't around 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Yeah.
So the collaboration is huge, and I love that. just don't get new shiny toy syndrome. Listen
Yeah.
to all the speakers, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Well, Pete, I mean, I definitely appreciate you being here. How would you like folks to like reach out to you if they wanted to reach out to you and connect?
Yeah, absolutely. You could go through PeteFournier.com. All those emails I get CC'd on, which is a ton of them on a daily basis, or follow me on social media. Basically on any platform. So reach out, DM me, any questions that you have. I'd love to.
All right, everyone. Pete Fournier, thanks for being here, buddy. Definitely got a lot of great value from you today. Thanks once again, my friend.
Thank you so much, Earl. Appreciate you.